Test, 1, 2. Is this thing working? Can anybody hear me? Let me see. I'm going to check the stream and see if it is working after this commercial break. What do you see? Tell me, Take Walker, what do your elf eyes see? Ah! Linux. Is that the wrong window? Ah, okay, no, this is Visual Studio. It is a programming interface, development environment, if you want to be technical. Hello! This is David, one of the non-J named people at Handelabra. And I do lots of engine programming for Sentinels and for Aeon's End, and so that is what I'm doing. Oh, am I too quiet? Clear is good. Appreciate that. But maybe I should just speak a little louder. Anyway, we are going to be programming one of the new Nemesis for Aeon's End. So if you've played the demo, you will probably be familiar with Rageborn, the big old sack of HP who just doesn't know when to quit with those strike cards. And that's this guy here in this text. And we are going to be making the Carapace Queen, sort of insectoid invader mantis bug thing. And she has this army of husks that will threaten to overwhelm Gravehold. So, but before we get to that, I just want to go over a little bit of the sort of framework that we use here. Some of you might, if you've watched before, you're probably familiar with the model and the view and the controller and such. So, but I'll just go over them briefly. So, there are 3 layers to the games that we tend to make. There is the view, which is what you're used to interacting with in the demo on the Kickstarter or Sentinels or One Deck Dungeon or what have you. It's all the buttons and the pretty visuals that are put together by Jen and the various artists like Adam and such for Sentinels. And then, that's the view. So that is where what you see, what is shown to you, and what you can interact with. So then there's the controller, which is the layer of code that takes the inputs and does all the things. This is where all the rules live. So if at the start of the game, Rageborn needs to shuffle all their strike cards into a deck, then the controller will do that. It'll take all the cards, it'll shuffle the strike deck, it'll add fury tokens where needed. That's where all the rules live. And then there is the model, which we don't have an actual representation of, but we do have the thing that it's all the stuff in it. Model is where all the information lives. So how much HP or life your character has, depending on the game. Aeon's End uses life. Or how many what cards are in play. All that data lives in the model. And so since we're programming a Nemesis, we're going to pop the hood and take a look at some of the data that we use to build that. So this is where we put in all of the text for the rules or important information like the maximum life and such, or even the text of all the cards. So for when we are starting a game after you've selected your mages and your nemesis, we only want to load the relevant data. So we have our nemesis broken out into independent text files. I did the carapace queens ahead of time because nobody wants to watch me transcribe cards into a computer for 2 hours. But all the text on the carapace queen is in here, and the important data and like what cards she has and such. The ever famous FPO makes its appearance again. But so yeah, this is where all that we put in all that data, and we have the file. You playing against the carapace queen, it'll load this and build the model around it. So she'll start with 60 life, and all the things that you want to read are filled out here. So then the next step from that is to build a controller. So as you can see here, Rageborn has a controller that at the start of the game, it shuffles his cards and gives him Nemesis tokens and things. And there's a trigger here so that at the end of the turn, if he has enough tokens, he strikes all his rules and such. So I have here a copy of Rageborn that is being changed for the carapace queen. So let's fill in some of her rules. So I have it here in front of me, and I can put it up on the screen with this text here. So set up body. Place the Husk track next to this map. Place 2 husks into play on the first 2 spaces of the Husk track here on this line. So the Husk track is a unique mechanic for the carapace queen, so you're going to get to see some edge case programming here. So basically what the Husk track is, if you look at, oh goodness, I don't believe it is in here, so I'm sorry, you're just going to have to take my word for it. The Husk track is basically a line of little Husk tokens that as it fills up, she does different things for the different levels. So like periodically there will be a card that says the Nemesis Queen Carapace Queen swarms, like this one. So what that means is you look at the Husk track, you look how many Husks there are, and then it'll tell you to do a thing. Like, play 4 Husks into play. Any player discards a prepped spell. Place 2 Husks into play. Gravehold suffers 5 damage. The player with the lowest life suffers 3 damage. Discard a Husk. And the dreaded 13 plus Husks, the players lose. So there is an outright loss condition to program here. So that's sort of her thing. She overwhelms you with Husks, and then you lose, unless you are careful. But, as you can see up here, Husks are minions with 1 life. You can destroy them and reduce their numbers. Want to also, helpfully, when you deal damage to a Husk, that the player who's dealing the damage can distribute that damage across multiple Husks by taking some damage themselves. So that will be interesting to program because you can technically distribute it any way you want, although usually they're going to be 1 life minions, so only 1 will do it. All right, let's check on the chat real quick. Hello, Cytosine and Takewalker, and the other 10 people. Ooh, that's more than I thought there would be. Oh wait, the stream froze? Oh no. How long ago was that? There's no timestamp. Hi, Bishop083 and EJGDND. I'm going to assume that stands for Dungeons and Dragons. Alright. Oh boy, that would have been awkward if it was frozen for 5 minutes. Good thing that didn't happen. Anyway. So. I'm glad it does. Very fun. Anyway, so let's get back to this. So, the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to... excuse me, 1 second. Need some water. if I don't choke myself with the water first. So the first thing we're going to need to do is to implement this Husk track, because that is the core mechanic of this. So this isn't Rageborn, we don't need a strike deck. This isn't Rageborn, we don't need Fury tokens. So let's do this. So we have a public list of damage target controllers called the Husk track. And we're going to use a little bit of C# shorthand here. And we're going to make it get... excuse me, water went down that wrong pipe. So we're going to make it get the something called the Nemesis specific target list. Nemesis specific targets, yes. So some Nemesis will have weird mechanics where they have extra targets, like this one. So list of Husk tokens on the Husk track. Since they're not actually cards, we don't represent them with cards. We represent them with just little damage targets. And so we're going to go here and get some of her startup text, which is here. So the Husk track, we don't need that because that doesn't actually exist in digital. We made an approximation up here at the top. So place 2 Husks into play on the first 2 spaces of the Husk track. So the way the track works, it's sort of like a linear sliding thing. Like you always destroy like off the end or the top, whatever you want to do. So we only need, doesn't matter where on the track we have them, we just have to add them. So we're going to add Husks. We're going to add 2 of them. So there's no add Husk method yet, but we're going to program that now. So there's that. We'll do this one later, so I'll bypass that for now. Rageborn Strike doesn't happen, so we don't need it. All right, public. It's an I enumerator. I'm not sure if Jean-Marc has talked about these before. Add Husks. Int number to add. So I enumerators are basically like little blocks of instructions that you can send, and the game will wait until it's finished to keep going. That's not exactly what they are, but it's a good approximation. So we can say, instead of game, hey, add these Husks, and don't say you're done setting up the game until you've added them. And so sometimes they're very helpful, other times they're very frustrating. But they're very helpful here. So, so we're adding Husks. So that means that we need to create new damage targets. So let's say that we have this Husk. It's going to be a new damage target, which is a model object. So that is just like a box, basically, until we give it information. And that Husk, we're going to set its life to 1, because they have 1 life. Oh, set life is a method. So we're going to set its max life to 1 because it needs to have that. Set max life. And we got to give it a name because everything's got to have an identifier. So the game knows how to look it up. Set identifier, Husk. And we're going to set a title because I don't know if Jean-Marc has talked about the difference between these two. A lot of time they can be the same, but the title is what gets printed in the view. So whenever you would see a Husk, the word Husk will come up, but the identifier is the way we look it up in the game. So like theoretically I could call this like Husk token, and we could look up Husk token, and you would just see Husk. So, but I'm not going to do that because I don't know. I'm just not going to do that. So now that we have a Husk, damage object, or damage target object, we need to have a controller for it so that it knows what to do, basically. Like, damage target holds information, but other than that, it literally does nothing. So now we're going to need to make a new damage target. So, 1 second. So, I'm actually going to change this. I'm going to call this Model Husk. And now we're going to have a Husk controller here that is a new damage target controller. And so it needs to know the game controller so the game can keep track of it, and then it takes the damage target and then fills itself out properly. So now we've made this Husk controller that damage target controller has a bunch of stuff in it. It knows what to do in certain circumstances. So it's not a problem. Like everything's all hooked up now. But now the Husk is just floating out in the ether, and we want to add it to the Husk track up here. So we're going to do this, a thing that I had to add a little bit prematurely because there was a lot of actual underlying structure work that needed to be done in order to support adding this Nemesis. So we're going to add Nemesis specific target, and I will show you what that does because I do not want to cheat you guys out of fun times watching programming. So does two things. It goes to the Nemesis, which is the model object, so the data thing, and it adds the target there, and I'll explain why it does that in a second. And it also adds it to this list called Nemesis specific targets, which is a list in every Nemesis of their unique sort of damage targets, sort of like the Husk track. In fact, exactly like the Husk track, it's just that. We're just renaming it up here for programming's sake, because that points to this. And if we go down here into the Nemesis, we have the same thing, but in the model. So, why do we have that duplication there? The answer is because the model is what gets saved. So if you ever have played one of our games and you stop and want to come back, the model is saved to your computer so that you can start it again, but the controller, poof, vanishes into smoke. So we ought to have it here so that the model remembers, oh hey, there are 5 Husks and they all have 1 HP. And that might sound a little counterintuitive, but there is actually a card in Carapace Queen's set of cards that makes Husks have 2 life, which means that they could have 2 or 1, and it needs to remember that. So that's why we keep track of it in both places. So now, excuse me, we have our Husk controller, and we add it to our list, but this is still complaining. And the reason it's complaining is because this is an IEnumerator, which means that we need to return some sort of IEnumerator value here. So what we're going to do is we're going to type yield return null, which in this circumstance, I can talk about what that means technically, but in this circumstance, that signifies, hey, we're done in this block of code, you're good to go. So we signal back, all good, and that is it for adding Husks. There is one more thing that I want to do, because what happens to Husks when they run out of HP? There's no code that removes them, because they're not going to a discard pile like card targets would. So where do they go? So this is going to be a neat little trick that will save us some, it's a little efficiency trick, perhaps. So we're going to make, actually it doesn't need to be public, it can be private. Another list of damage target controllers. And we're going to call it destroyed husks. So, and we're going to make a new one every time. Destroyed husks. It's going to be a new empty list of damage target controllers. So even when you're loading a game, like, this will come back empty. So, and we're going to make it so that when a husk is destroyed, it gets taken out of this saved list and gets put in this sort of like junky list. And then we can, as sort of like a cache of created damage targets in damage target controllers, that we can bring back into play instead of creating like a bunch of damage targets and then just have them piling up on the sidelines. So these won't be saved between games. And again, like this is all sort of preliminary work. We'll be able to find ways to like clean up a little bit better in the future, but this is something that I want to have on the first pass, just so we have something preventing us from just creating just infinite of these. So we get a new one every time, and we're going to add a trigger. And Jean-Marc has definitely talked about these, but I'll go over them again. Triggers are sort of these objects that lie in wait for certain game actions happening. So when damage is dealt, when a deal damage action happens, this will check some stuff and then maybe do some stuff. So deal damage action, add trigger, not triggers. There we go. I was wondering why that wasn't working. So the deal damage action when the damage target is one of our husks. So this .husk track contains damage target. And it says damage target, but actually it means damage target controller. It's just sort of a shorthand for the controller layer. So if our husk track contains it, and here, let's do a little indentation to make this more readable, and the damage target is so if the damage target life is less than or equal to 0, let's see, are there any other circumstances? I think that covers everything that we need for this. So then we're going to have it do a thing. Remove husk. Or we can call it discard or remove. I'm going to call it remove husk. And we're going to pass it the target. And then we want that to happen at a certain timing, trigger timing. We want it to happen after the damage. So when a damage is dealt, we'll check, is the target a husk? Is it in the husk track? Is the target destroyed? Does it have 0 or less? And if so, we'll remove it. So now we need to add a remove husk. Like enumerator. Remove husk. And then we want to pass in a specific husk. So we're going to add in that little termination bit there. And we're going to want to go to this .husk track, or rather this I made a little helper for this situation again, like above. So husk to remove. We want to remove that. So it removes it from the list of controllers and removes it from the list of model things. But since we're going to be caching these, we're going to add it. So this.destroyed husks, add husk to remove. So keeping track of it. Now this list is getting filled out a little bit. Also, I want to put a comment here. List of destroyed, or let's call it a cache, because that's really what it is. Of destroyed husks for use or reuse later. And we'll add a little comment to this saying, when a husk would be reduced to 0 or fewer life, it gets removed from the husk track. So now we're keeping track of our destroyed husks. They're getting removed from the list and thus removed from play. That is a distinction that I did not make. So you know this list of Nemesis specific targets? So like I did some preliminary work to make this happen. But I'm going to show you a little bit of why that matters. So, and the difference between it and our destroyed husks list. So, here we are. Damage target controllers. So this is in the game controller. So this is the thing that controls the whole game. Usually game, like all the rules of the game that aren't unique to cards or nemesis go in here. Well, normally, when you're looking for damage targets, you look at the cards in play and figure out which ones are targets. And you say, those are damage targets. And you look at the turn taker controllers in play and you see which one of these are targets. And Aeon's End, the answer is all of them. And I added this little thing. So the Nemesis controller list of targets specifically is added. So that's why the husks on the track count as in play, but not the destroyed ones. So now we have this cache of destroyed husks that don't count as in play. So what are we going to do with them? We want to bring them into play if we have some. So we're going to do a little if statement here. So if this.destroyed husks count is 0, then we want to make a new one. So that too. Husk controller. So damage target controller. Husk controller. And if it's not, here we are, then we're going to borrow one from it. So I know I made this a list before. I've just decided that I'm going to make this a stack, which those of you who are familiar with programming will know already, and those who aren't, a stack is sort of like a stack of cards in real life. If you put a card down, and then you put a card down on top of it, and then a card down on top of it, you have a stack of cards. But in programming, if you want to get cards from that stack, you pull a card off the top, pull a card off the top, pull a card off the top. And so that's how stacks work in this. You put them down, and you put like a bunch of them down, and when you pull stuff off, you always get the last thing you put in. So we're going to do that here. So then husk controller will equal destroyed husks.pop. For a stack, it is called pushing and popping. So instead of add, we're pushing. And so that will simultaneously take it out of the stack and give it to us for use. So, and let's put a little comment here explaining what the heck is happening. If there are no cached husks, make a new one. Otherwise, reuse one from the stack, or from the cache. Alrighty, so that was a lot. Let's check in on the chat. What's the worst card in the whole game? Carapace Queen? Oh yeah, no, I hate that card. Because otherwise we could just make like little tokens that we don't need to remember at all because they always have 1 health. But since they can have more than 1 health, that means we actually need to keep track of them. And as to answer your question, Bishop, why not just delete the Husk tokens when they die? It's to do like we theoretically could do that. The reason that I'm caching them is because like we don't want to put a lot of strain on things happening. So like when we're making new stuff, it's not a lot of strain, but it's a little bit, and we want to minimize the amount of like making and destroying stuff that we do. And like they'll go away if you reload the game, and so that'll just make more. But we don't need to save husks that are destroyed in like when you quit the game, if that makes sense. Like theoretically, we could just make all 15 of them because 15 is the maximum at the beginning, and who knows, we might do that going forward. This is just sort of like a first pass. Yeah. Sorry, I'm a little behind on the chat, Bishop. Yes, this is things we're testing will help. I wanted to have some sort of way to like bring them back. Who knows? We might switch over to make all 15 of them at the beginning. So also hello to everybody in the chat. And Jen. Hi, Jen. All right. So anyway, we're getting back to it. So now we have the Husk track, and it exists. And this is the stack now. So we have the setup, which shows the husks being added. So let's do something fun and exciting and show people something new. So those of you who have beta tested for us, or not beta tested, alpha tested for us before, know that we have this sort of text interface for alpha testing. Well, I'm going to show it off a little bit. It's not done yet, but like you guys are cool. You won't tell anyone. Or maybe you will. I don't know. But you guys seem cool. So we are going to test to see if everything is working right. We'll write a test too. Oops, I picked Rageborn. I'm silly. My bad. Oh, you know what? It's automatically choosing Rageborn because we just made Carapace Queen. She's not added to anything yet. So let's go do that. So let's see. Here we are. Available Nemesis identifiers. So now we should be able to select Carapace Queen. What's this? Could not load resource. Carapace Queen. Did I misspell it? Carapace Queen. No, I don't think I did. Constance. It's definitely here. Nemesis Carapace Queen. So what was the error exactly? Could not load a resource named Handelabra Aeon's and definitions Nemesis Carapace Queen. Tis a puzzlement. Carapace Queen. What am I missing? Nope, that's the wrong button. So let's see, what loads Rageborn? Am I missing something here? Nemesis definition of file name, identifier. So turns out we are going to get to see some debugging. So sorry about that. So that just tacks Nemesis onto the beginning. Carapacequeen. What the heck is happening? Is there a Rageborn thing I'm missing? It's the demo Nemesis. And none of that stuff. Is it in the game view? Nope. New custom game. Nemesis identifier. Get Nemesis definition. Find definition by identifier. Nemesis definition. Identifier. Base definition identifier. Sorry, this is probably going to be the least interesting time. So we're loading the JSON and it can't seem to find. Get manifest resource stream. Oh, is something wrong with the Twitch? Yeah, lots and lots of text. Well, this is a bummer. I'm going to try this for like maybe 3 more minutes, but I am not going to bore you with this. I can just write tests for it over here on the thing that you can't see on your screen to my left, our unit tests. Definition namespace. Handelabra Aeon's end. Engine definitions. .txt. Definitions. What the heck is happening? So this is definitely here. Is this a valid JSON file? Let's try that. That shouldn't cause this problem, but it's worth checking. Nemesis is one of those words that has stopped looking like a word to me. I've seen it so many times. That's not really, like, important or anything. I'm just, like, word vomiting while I'm spinning my wheels. So we have Rageborn, Carapace Queen, that's right. So we're going to step in. Step in. Identifier is not null. This is for Rageborn. Oops, I stepped over, not in. Shoot. So here's something that I'm going to try. It seems weird. I'm going to look at the file. Nope, didn't mean to do that. That's view in browser. And make sure that it's in the right place. Like it could be in a weird place or something. Oh, none of those. So I'm going to try removing it from the project and adding it again. Alright, so it is in the correct place. Nemesis Carapace Queen.txt. This is good radio, as they say on the letters page. And the identifier is right. So we don't have a cached new definition. So that's where it's going in. It's creating this new definition. Wow, this is just boggling my mind. All right, I said 3 minutes. It's been 5. So I apologize. This is something I will have to sort out later. And you know what? Just as like an I'm sorry, I will show you the Rageborn interface just so we can like show this off a little bit. You can choose various speeds. So like it'll like speed through a bunch of unnecessary stuff. I'm going to choose medium speed. So the game started and Rageborn does all this stuff. It gets to me and I can choose what cards to play or what actions to take. So I'm going to play some cards. And then I'm going to buy some cards. Buy a spell. It's not efficient, so I apologize. And then I get to choose the order in which I discard my cards. It auto discards if they're all the same, which was a handy feature. Still adding lots of stuff. This is pretty familiar for if you've used Mega Computer or alpha testing stuff. But you can also do things to read like, I'm going to read Rageborn, and he's got 1 Nemesis token and a bunch of cards. Nothing in play, though, because he hasn't had a turn yet. And I can read all this stuff. Like, yeah, say there's still some kinks to work out with this looping text and such. And the word bullet instead of bullets. So, like I said, things to work out. So let's skip ahead to a Nemesis turn. Rageborn has no start of turn effects. No cards in play. Plays Woven Sky. Let's read Woven Sky. Well, he's getting another turn. I guess we could try reading Woven Sky now. Oops. No, we can't. There we go. Like I said, some kinks to work out. But let's see what Woven Sky does. So it's a power. It'll go off when it runs out of power tokens. Unleash, and any player suffers 4 damage. But if we want to get rid of it, we can discard 3 cards in hand. So I'm going to cast my spells and do some damage to this new minion that he's played. And then I'm going to discard the Power Woven Sky by getting rid of the crystals in my hand. So all I can do is prep spells now. And if we go back and look at Rageborn, you'll see that his Provoker, his little minion, has taken some damage, and Woven Sky is in his discard. So, work in progress, but it's coming along nicely. Let's check on the chat because I feel like I have let you guys down a little bit. So I'm going to go and talk. Lots and lots of text. Twitch problems. And Twitch problems. Alrighty. So I will say hello to you all again because I see that there are 2 more people. So back to programming. So let's get to this carapace queen. We want to make sure that she's setting up properly. So let's go to her test. You might notice that this is stuff about Rageborn because I literally copied Rageborn's test and we're going to set it up right. So carapace queen. And she doesn't have tokens. I mean, not in that way anyway. So let's copy her setup text, place 2 husks. So she has no strike deck. So let's let's see, what do we have as far as damage targets go? Nothing. So we just want to assert, basic assert. Let's make sure that the count is equal. So we're expecting 2. We're expecting 2 husks in there. So now we're going to go to Nemesis. So there's a shortcut for Rageborn. And I'm going to make a shortcut for her as well. So this will be carapace queen Nemesis controller. So we're just going to call her Queen. Queenie. Carapace queen. So now we have a shortcut. And we can say the husk track count. So I'm going to make sure there are 2 of them. And we don't need to print these cards. So it's a simple test. Her setup is not that hard. Once we have that husk, nope, that's the wrong thing. That's the thing that's bad. So we're going to run this test here. Okay, we're getting the same problem. So this is actually something that I'm going to have to fix right now because no testing will work. Maybe if I stare hard enough at it, it'll fix itself. And so now you get a true dev stream, a gaze into the maddening code hole that developers sometimes find themselves in, where things should be working. You have no idea why it's not working. Heck, you even tested it a little bit, and it's just busted, and you have no idea why. Static read-only available Nemesis identifiers. I'm just going to retype it because who knows, maybe I messed up typing. Don't you hate it when like things were working and then reality's just like pulling the rug out from under you? go back to where I was looking at Rageborn. Nemesis has to include identifiers. Nemesis, i.e. Nemesis. Nemesis. Rageborn. Nemesis. Identifier. Definition. Alright, we're going to try this again. So, Carapace Queen. This is starting to not look like a word to me too. Down the rabbit hole. Down, down. Dive, dive, dive. It's not cached because it doesn't exist. Base definition. Find by identifier. So far, so good, I think. Carapace Queen. File name. That's promising. Ref file name. So, still no. Base object name. Going deeper. We need to go deeper. It's not a breach definition, or a mage, or Nemesis card. It's a Nemesis. So we're taking Nemesis and identifier. File name is Nemesis Carapace Queen. Base object name is Nemesis. Nemesis. So now these are filled out. Nemesis, Carapace, Queen, and Nemesis. It's not null, so let's load this JSON array. We step in. It is valid JSON, I checked. Definition file extension. So let's look at this resource name. Handelabra.Aeon's.engine. Dot definitions. Alrighty, so it's definitely definitions. Dot Nemesis Carapace Queen. So I don't know how many of you watched Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, but that episode where Blue gets really stir crazy from being home alone and starts just repeating things. That's me right now. I'm doing that. So there's no stream, which means it's just not finding the file. All of this is right. And it's loading Rageborn. Let's see what it looks like when it loads Rageborn. That could be informative. Oh, this is loading everything. Player cards. Player cards. Breach list. Nemesis Rageborn.txt. Nemesis card list. Mage list. This is every time it loads anything. I feel like we could maybe make this a little more efficient. Okay, this is clearly not working. Need to go higher up. Oh, that's why it's doing everything, because it's loading a thing that it shouldn't. It's loading a previous game. We don't want that. New custom game. Select a Nemesis. Get Nemesis. Continue. No. Custom. Okay. Now, we might not get to the bottom of it, but we are certainly going to get into the middle of it. Rageborn is fine. Here's the problem. No, that's Rageborn again. Rageborn is fine. Here's the problem. And I give you my solemn word that I will show you something more interesting in 4 minutes if I can't fix this. Find definition by identifier. What are you hiding? For any of you who have ever reported a guy's bug, this is what I do the whole time. This is me fixing a guy's bug. What is wrong? Why is it not finding it? No, that's the wrong thing. Just gonna search for every instance of Rageborn and see what I'm missing. Constants. Rageborn. Nemesis demo. Lots of testing. Lots of testing. It's all testing. File name. That's the wrong one. Nemesis. Carapace queen.txt. I'm broken. I'm defeated. You win this round, Carapace Queen. I will probably spend the rest of the day after this stream sorting this problem out. Instead, we're going to forge ahead with this because I have made you all suffer long enough. How many guys' bugs were there? I want to say 1 in 3, but I feel my heart thinks it's probably closer to 2 in 3. EJGDND, have you experienced code that doesn't work because one of the dependencies switched version and it broke things syndrome? Yeah, this might be that, probably not, but I have certainly experienced that before at my old job. Ooh boy. How many guys bugs were there? Pretty funny. Copy anything ability would be so hard to get right. See, that's the thing. Like, it's not even so much that it's hard to get right. It's just like it allows interactions between things that, because the copy ability works fine. It's not the copying that's the problem. It's the fact that he can take 2 cards that should never be interacting and then just like take the action figures and slam them together and be like, now kiss. Like, it just that's what breaks things. Anyway, So let's program something new. So one thing that we haven't done yet is we haven't programmed the dire consequences of the Husk track. So let's do that real quick, because we need to have a thing happen when she swarms. So I'll call this Carapace Queen Swarm. Trying to get this horribly off the rails stream back on track. So look to the number of husks on the track to determine what happens. So, first thing that could happen, 0 to 3. Place 4 husks into play. 4 to 6. Any player discards a prepped spell. Place 2 husks into play. Seven to 10. Gravehold suffers 5 damage. 11 to 12. The player with the lowest player with the lowest life suffers 3 damage. Discard a husk. And 13 plus, the players lose. So we could make either a big ol' if statement or a switch statement potentially, but I think that an if statement might be a little cleaner. Like, this would be a good candidate for a switch statement, but then we'd have things like 0, 1, 2 all in a row with nothing in them, so it just skips over them to do whatever it is. So we're just going to do an if statement for this. I'm going to put this inside of it. So if this .husktrack.count is less than or equal to 3. Place 4 husks into play. That's nice and easy. Equals add husks. We spent some time adding that earlier. And then we have to get this boilerplate code. That handles the coroutine thing and the pausing so that things can finish. So we're adding 4 husks. Else if this .husk track, so we don't need to check if it's less than or equal to 3 now because that's already being evaluated. So we can see if this is less than or equal to 6. Oh. Count. Any player discards a prepped spell. Place 2 husks into play. So now we need to select players that have prepped spells and then also add some husks. So leave some space for that. I think there might be a helper for this, actually. Discard spell. Maybe not. Spell. Let's check the game controller real quick, see if there's anything there. Nope. All right, we're going to have to make something new. Or unless. All right. Activate. So let's look at a card that has things discard spells for guidance. So let's see. Prepped spell. Look for that. It'll be a little broad, but here we are. So which card is this? It's Seize. So let's go to Rageborn. Oh, you know what? I bet it is one of Rageborn's special cards. Where are you? I know you're around here somewhere. Seize. Players collectively discard the two most expensive prepped spells. So the way this one is working doesn't actually work for us because this one is giving us criteria for the spells to discard. Oh, well that's a way we could do it actually. So let's go back to that Carapace Queen real quick. Any player discards a prepped spell. So really, that's not a terrible way to do it. Instead of looking at the most, like this has a bunch of logic for like, oh, this is the most expensive spell. It gets a little confusing. But instead, we can just say, hey, give us all the prepped spells and pick one to discard. So let's do that. So it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to want to store those results. Select card activation. Actually, there might be a select and discard already. Select and discard. I could have sworn that there was a thing for this. Oh, you know what? There is a thing for this. It's just in the card helpers. That should potentially be moved to the game controller. So we have a file full of like useful things that we have cards do a lot. So let's move this if we can. Card controller. It's out here somewhere. Helper. Maybe it is in card controller. No? Where is it? It was here somewhere. Card controller. Factory. Help. Player card controller. Nemesis card controller. Goodness gracious. This dot game controller, select and discard card. Okay, it was in game controller. I knew it. So I apologize for another wild goose chase. This dot game controller, select and discard cards. Boom. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. So now, the source is this. It's the Carapace Queen who's saying, I'm doing this, me. The criteria. So they are going to be player cards. And what player cards do we want? Well, we only want spells, for sure. And we want those spells to be prepped. So the location needs to be a breach, because that's the only place you can prep spells. So if it's a spell and it's a breach, it's viable for discard. Any player discards a prepped spell. And since I believe this handles the discard, we don't need it to store anything. Yeah. Activate select card, which is how we pick a card. We take the card, then we discard it. Wonderful. Perfect. Exactly what we're looking for. Alrighty. So, next, we want Gravehold to suffer 5 damage if this .husktrack.count is less than or equal to 10. Not 19. Not 1 minus 10. Because it only gets past this if it's greater than 3. It only gets past this if it's greater than 6. There we go. This one's nice and easy. Var E. And this is game controller. Deal damage. This damage source, also this. Damage amount 5. Target this .gravehold. Boom. So easy. It's good to have a well-stocked library of useful things. Alright, so now this .husktrack.count is less than or equal to 12. Player with the lowest life suffers 3 damage, discard a husk. Okay. So, let's take this as a base. Gonna sub out the thing that we do. We'll come right back to that one. So, discard a husk, that's easy. Remove husk, we already have it. So we want we want the husk off the end, so we're just going to take this .husktrack.last. No? I suppose they could both be stacks, but that's something to change for another day. So we're removing a husk because it says to discard one. So I'm going to move that down. So now something a little more complicated. The player with the lowest life suffers 3 damage. Well, first we need to figure out who has the lowest life. And this .controller. Find with most. Where is it? Most. Get mage with most or least. So, the reason we're looking is we want to find out what their life is. And do we want it to be the most? No, we want it to be the least. So, what is the problem here? This is not an enumerator. That's right. So this will return viable mages. Oh, I just put a space there. Didn't mean to do that. So what this does, just pop the hood a little bit. It has different protocol for checking based on whether it's prepped spells or current life or what have you. But it looks at all the mages and the distinct life values and then gives you all of them that have the lowest. So if there are 2 people who have 3, it'll give you both. So now we want to select target select target and deal damage. Source is this. The damage source is this. The damage amount is 3. Target criteria. Well, it's nice and easy now. So we have the damage target controller. If viable mages contains that target, because turn takers are a form of damage target, and that's what we want. And the reason is player suffering damage. So you'll get to pick if there's a tie, and if there's not a tie, well, then it sucks to be the person with the lowest. You have no choice in the matter. And then finally, the dreaded game over. So really, this can just be else, because it has to be bigger, 13 or higher at this point. And it's just going to be game over. Game controller. Game over. Ending result. You lose. Oh, hey, that's something. We're not losing because Gravehold is destroyed. We're losing because Carapace Queen says game over. So we actually get to add a new end result. So here we have a big list of all the enumerations and such. Because you can win because you destroyed the Nemesis or ran out the cards of the Nemesis. Lose because you don't have any mages left or Gravehold is gone. Well, now you could have a lose Nemesis unique. Or lose unique Nemesis. So that way we can figure out, oh, it was the Nemesis. Well, which one? There might be other Nemesis who have unique loss conditions. So, lose unique Nemesis. GG. No re. So, that's it for Swarm. Nice and easy compared to debugging. So, back to the chat real quick. Let's check in and see how people are doing. Yeah, I'm excited to see what Jean-Marc cooks up for Aeon's End. It's still in development, so we shall see. So let's see. We did the Husk track in its entirety. So, here's some things that we haven't done. First, nice and easy, there's the Unleash for the Carapace Queen. No, this is not Rageborn. Also, Rageborn is spelled wrong. Carapace Queen, or rather, we don't need to do that. Place 2 Husks into play. So, we just say, add Husks. Boom. Easy peasy. Lemon squeezy. Next, when Carapace Queen has 15 Husks in play and must place another into play, Gravehold suffers 1 damage instead. So here's something that's a little bit different. So there are a couple ways we could do this. You could set up a trigger that reacts to whenever they add a damage target controller. In fact, how does anything react to this? Because nothing would know that she's adding Husks. So really what we should do is encapsulate this into an action. Because that's how everything knows that things are happening. You can set the life of whoever to whatever, but you need, in order for things to react, they have to know, oh, there's an action happening. So let's move this into there. So we're going to make a new game action. And we'll model it on this just Nemesis tokens. And we're going to call it Add Nemesis or adjust Nemesis specific target. So this could be an add or remove, and if the need arises, we can break it out into either. Like we could have a separate action for each of them, because who knows? Maybe we'll have like a special animation for stuff. I can't that's not what I'm working on right now. We'll see what happens. So Nemesis specific targets action. Just let's look at everything that this has to offer. We want to know the Nemesis adjusting the targets. Same as the other one. How much or how many targets we plan to adjust. So, that's kind of awkward. That works for tokens. This is not really that. So instead of an int, we are going to, we can get rid of that. We are going to make this a list. Oops. Damage targets. Targets to, So do we want to have a generic list for this and then a Boolean that says if we're adding or removing? Or would it make more sense to have a list to add, list to remove? I like the idea of having separate lists. It's a little more like storage technically, but it keeps things nice and encapsulated from each other. Targets to add. And public list. Targets to remove. So now we want this. Adjust Nemesis specific targets action. We need to be using the right library. Using system.collection. No. Collections.generic. Also system.link because, well, we'll see if we need that. So now we're going to have passed in lists of damage targets to effect. This will probably in the future be broken out into two separate things. You know what, let's just do that now. We're just going to make this add and remove because they look different in the view. They should just be different. So we're not going to call this adjust. We're going to call this add. Alrighty. Targets to be added to the Nemesis control. So we have the one list we're being added in. Add Nemesis. Alrighty, so let's get rid of this stuff, 'cause this stuff doesn't matter anymore. So we want this dot targets to add to be the list that we pass it. Targets to add. So when this action is created, we will take this list and store it in there. So now in the do action, we already have this code written, as you can see. So, we want this code to live here because this is very specific to the Carapace Queen, and we only want the damaged targets. So really, the code that needs to be moved, or like the code that needs to go into an action so that things can react to it, is this right here. Add Nemesis specific target. Unless we want to pass these in. Which, hey, we could, but then that would get rid of the caching. Something to think about. Anyway, this is, if there's one takeaway from this, it's that like doing a Nemesis has a lot to consider, things to change maybe, or like improve, or even re-implement in some cases. So you get to see this messy, important process live. So we're going to be just moving this into the action for now, and who knows, we might move some more stuff in there another time. So instead, I'm going to take this. Oh, you know what is wrong? This only ever adds one husk. That's something I totally forgot to do. So all those times we're adding multiple husks, no, we're just adding one. So that's something to fix in a second. But first, staying on task. The do action in here is actually just going to be adding it. It's just going to be adding it right there. This dot nemesis. This is adding targets. We want to use the property that this has. And we can add a list. This dot. This is adding targets. So there is no one that adds a list. So let's expand this. So these are the basic. I just want to add this one. But we can also have a handy dandy little group add. Add Nemesis specific targets, plural. We want to add a whole bunch at once. And then we just call for each our damage target controller in damage target controllers and Nemesis specific target. And vice versa for remove. That's right, and this is right. All right, so now we go back to this. We're adding damage specific targets. Targets to add. So a little bit of bookkeeping stuff here. We want to be able to see what is inside this action easily. Oops, that's too much. So, and then we want targets to add equals just targets to add dot comma list, and we only want to get the identifiers, so we're actually gonna select. So we do, turns out we do want link in here. Link is a little bit of a useful library. Lets you operate on things in lists. Handy. Damage target controller. Identifier. Using a little bit of shorthand there. So there we go. So now the string prints nice. And we're not doing this. So the friendly string is really only going to be theoretically, this would be used to either add specific named cards in the in a hypothetical future, or many of the same. So we're going to make a little string here called target string. Target string. And target string is going to be one of two things. So by default, let's say it's all the names of all the targets sort of strung together like we had up here. This targets to add. Select. Damage target controller. Title, since this is printed. So, comma list. So this would be a long list. If we were adding 15 husks, this would just be husk, 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 husk. Ooh, no thank you. So, actually, we're not going to turn it into a comma list just yet. Target names. So then we're going to have this, and it's going to remove duplicate names. And it's going to keep track of if there's more than one. So, well, do we want it to be a for each? Yeah, we do. We could just do unique to get all the unique names, but we also want to know if there's more than one. Actually, no, that's not super hard. I don't know why I'm thinking about this so much. This is just like readability. All right, so I guess for now, I'm going to put a little like note to come back to this. So to do, because I'm getting distracted. To do fix string to show which titles are plural. And we're just going to get a list of uniques. So we get all the titles. No, we need distinct. That's what I want. So now we'll get a comma list of all these titles. So this will say Carapace Queen adds Husk, even if it's multiple Husks. So, but this is something we'll come back to. Not everything needs to be fixed immediately. Speaking of not everything needs to be fixed immediately, we need to do this and make it add multiple husks, because it's not doing that. That is wrong. And we need to make this use our new game action. So let's stay focused on the game action then. So we have this new game action. It does most of the things that we want it to do. It adds the Nemesis specific targets. So we're going to go into the game controller and we're going to make a little thing that lets us call this game action. Game controller has lots of stuff in it. Stuff like this. Close. 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 Action methods. This is what we want. But let's close everything else first, just so that we have. Alright, action methods. So every action has the ability to be performed by the game controller. All these things about spending ether and selections, gaining life, game over. Everything goes through this, you know? So at the bottom here, we're going to add enumerator. Add Nemesis specific target. Or what's the action? Yeah, add Nemesis specific target. Action. This should have action at the end of it. That is my bad. So now back to game controller. Add Nemesis specific targets. Base controller. Base controller is sort of like the thing from which everything derives. So we know that is Carapace Queen in our case. And then an IEnumerable, which is the sort of basic type of all the lists and stacks and such. And it will be damage target controllers. And it will be, and we could call these the targets to add. And all these sort of have the same thing. I'm just going to copy this because the only difference is the action that they perform and stored results. So let's clear this and we'll add a little list. Add Nemesis specific targets action. Stored results. And the reason that we have this is sometimes some things need to know if an action happened, and like it could be something like ridiculous, like, oh, we'll never need to know if like cards are revealed. We just need to know like what the cards were, so we'll only get the cards. But like my history with guys says if you think you don't need it later, you probably will. So we're going to have a little stored results here. And now add Nemesis specific targets action. So the game controller is this, the source is passed in, and targets to add is passed in. So since it specifically wants a list, we're going to ask for specifically a list. And there we go. Now we can call this from anything that needs to, like this. The more I think about it, the more I like moving this target creation into that action. But that is something for another time. Husk controller. But here's the thing, it doesn't want a Husk controller. It wants a list of things, and we need to make multiples. So what we're actually going to do here, var husks equals new list of damage target controllers. So I'm going to start that at the beginning. And we're going to have a little for loop that does all this stuff. Again, I think I may move this depending on like the way things pan out. So int I equals 0, I is less than number to add, I plus plus. Basic of basic. The most basic, that is. So now we're creating all these Husk controllers and then adding them to this list, which we will then send to our action. So there we go. Now we have an action, sort of, but this is an IEnumerator, which means that we need to use boilerplate code. So we can't just say return null. We don't want to wait. Like we want to wait till this is done. All of its stuff. Yeah, I think I will move this, but again, for later. So now we should actually be generating husks. Boy, I wish I could demonstrate this with testing, but sometimes life gives you many, many lemons. But anyway, we are now creating husks properly. So now we can react to creating husks. Because one of the things that Carapace Queen does, if we go back to her list, where is she? She was just here. Nemesis, Carapace Queen. When she has 15 husks in play, you must place another, and you must place another. Gravehold suffers damage instead. So really we do want to put this husk creation into that action. But let's do this first. So, add Nemesis specific targets action. So we're going to call this add target for short, AT. So if that, because we need to pass in an at target action, technically, we have it. But we don't actually care about the targets we're adding. Because we know that, well, actually we do. We want to make sure that the source is this. So we're making sure that the source equals this. So if the source is this, and this.husktrack.count is 15 or greater. Theoretically, it could be greater, but it should never be. But hey, I always account for the impossible, I guess. 15. We're going to have a Gravehold damage instead, or Gravehold damage response. Trigger timing before, because instead of adding these targets, we want to do this before. So let's go down to the bottom here. IEnumerator doesn't need to be public, only this will ever call it. Gravehold damage response. And it will take an add Nemesis specific target action. So, what does this do? If we scroll back up, borrow that text, Gravehold suffers 1 damage instead. So, first thing to do is we need to cancel adding the target. This is why I want to move that target creation into the action, because, like, first of all, if anything's interacting with the model, it should be in an action, realistically. So it also means that if we want to cancel it, then it doesn't do anything. So we're going to say cancel action. Get some boilerplate. So the source is this, and we're canceling that. Why doesn't, game controller. The source is this, and the action we're canceling is that. And instead, we start game controller, deal damage, this, 1, gravehold. There we go. So now we just need to make sure that this action properly cancels everything. So even the target creation. So we're going to take all this stuff and we want to move it into an action. So as part of this, we don't actually want to pass in existing damage targets. We want to pass in the data to make new damage targets, right? So what we actually want to be passing in is max life. Targets come in with max life usually, unless they're weird, and in which case we can add a new field for this. But we want to put in the identifier and the title. And how many? Or do we want to put in how many? We could have it add them one at a time. Things to think about. Let's have it do just one. Sorry I keep changing things on the fly here. My plan got kind of thrown for a loop. But hey, we just gotta roll with it sometimes. So we're changing it to target, single. So we'll get back to fixing that in a second. All right, so we're going to do this multiple times functionally. And for efficiency, we may end up like cleaning it up a little bit, but who knows? Instead of doing all this stuff, we still want that. So we're going to go in, add Nemesis specific target game controller. What the heck? Oh, right. Change the name. So instead of having a list here, we're going to have an int max life, since targets must have a life, otherwise they are not targets, and they need to get a life. Then string identifier, or we'll call it target identifier. String target title. And stored results, because who knows, you might need stuff like that. So now we're going to pass in max life, target identifier, target title. Yeah, that's everything. So now we go in, we replace this thing, because who needs it? Max life. And string identifier. And string title. So now instead of this, Ah. Public int max life. Public string identifier. Public string title. So that should be a capital I. Max life complete target to add. The identifier of the yeah, let's call these target identifier. And the title. So here we go. We have all the makings of a target now. This max life equals max life. This dot target identifier equals identifier. This dot target title equals title. So now for do action, we want to do all that stuff we were doing before. So now we're going to make a model target, new damage target. And we're going to set all that stuff. Model target, set max life, this dot max life, model target set life to the max life. Target set identifier yeah, because this has an identifier as an object, so we don't actually want to call it identifier because that gets real confusing. Target title. So those are all things that we are doing. We are creating a target controller. Equals new target, damage target controller. This dot game controller. This dot, or not this, model target. There we go. And then this dot Nemesis, adding targets, add target, target controller. There we go. I love it when a plan comes together. And then for this, we just change this stuff to be what it was. Or what it is now. Go, and then that makes this so easy because we don't need to have a long list of things. We're just adding, or I guess it is adds still, just a target title. Wow, so nice and clean. So now we're adding these. And I could show the stuff about removing them, but that would take longer than the 5 minutes I have allotted. So let's see, checking up on the chat. Oh boy, it's active in here. Wow. Yes, John, this Nemesis turns out to be quite evil. And then Crit Camp jumped in with a lot of stuff. Oh boy, we're getting raided. Yeah, I'm not John. John is John. Hello. I'm me. And I definitely do not have anything to show you in these final few minutes because anything that I would show you would take like way too long. Mix guys with Harpy and watch things explode. Oh dear. No, please. You don't even... So, Harpy has a card that lets her increase or decrease numerals printed on cards that exist, and making that work with guys took as long as implementing everything in the Harpy's deck, including the Harpy herself. So, please don't mix them, please. But that is it for me. Unless you have any questions, I'm happy to answer programming questions. Oh boy, 22 people. Ugh. Stage fright kicking in. All right, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. I will check back in 1 minute. And I will go take a look and see if there's anything that I can show you that is interesting. Oh, I know what I can show you. Oh, wait. Something is amiss. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. Gravehold damage response. Yeah, that's wrong. So I know it won't load the Carapace Queen, but something fun I can show you for those of you who don't have access to the alpha yet, which this alpha is everybody but some other alphas. There's secrets, so you can type in cheat. So if you go to the help, there are a couple cheats. So ether is like the currency, so I can cheat ether and give myself like 50, which is like truly impossible. So that's something fun you can do. I'm gonna buy I'm gonna buy one of everything. Oh, verse whatever. I chose the wrong thing. There we go, one of everything. So, but there are fun things that are useful, very useful for testing, where you can like stack decks and grab cards and such. But also you can be a cheat and do that. All right, let's check back at this chat. Many secret villains in the chat, I see. You say one, but I'm not so sure. Well, I'm going to hand this off to Jen then, since you have no more questions, except that someone's asking if Christopher is a villain openly. And I would say that's a question for Christopher, not for me. So I'm going to pass it off to Jen. It was a pleasure to stream for you. And I apologize for all of the difficulties that we ran into. But hopefully you had fun. That's the important thing, right? Maybe the difficulties were the friends we made along the way. So I will talk to you later. See ya.